Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Sharma.
Hello everyone, welcome to ForumIAS. In this video, we're going to have an analysis of The Hindu for today, that is 20th of September 2023. So these are the important articles that we're going to discuss in today's video. So let's get started. So here is our first article for today. So our first article is the mantras that powered success at the G20 summit. So recently there was this G20 summit and there were a lot of articles on this G20 summit. So here we are going to see what were the mantras that powered the success at this G20 summit. So here if you see regarding the G20 summit, there are a lot of important points that we have discussed earlier also in various other articles that we have. So here we are going to discuss the various mantras that powered the success at this G20 summit. So this is like a summary of what happened at this G20 summit. So we are going to discuss about this. So do have a note of these points. So coming to the first thing, to look at more broadly, it is India's policy mantras of multilateralism, multipolarity and the middle way that one day at Bharat Mandapam, which is the venue of G20 summit in Delhi. So this is one point that you have to remember. And also if you see, in the last year, our Prime Minister Mr. Modi has visited various countries like Japan, US, UAE, Australia, France, Indonesia, and also hosted leaders of Australia, Japan, Germany, etc. and also all the members of G20. So it has a considerable influence on this process. So whatever our Prime Minister has done regarding various visits to various other countries, all these also had an influence on our G20 and its process, right? And also we have seen that there was an absence of Russia and also the president of China at this G20 summit. So even though they were absent, this summit, it has ensured a less fractious gathering and also it has helped more than it has hindered. So though they were absent, it did not hinder the process, it has even helped the process even more, right? So whatever the visits of our Prime Minister has definitely helped in this regard, and G20, it is one of the only remaining organizations that includes the Western Bloc, that is also the Russia-China combined and also the non-aligned group, which consists of India, Brazil, Argentina, Indonesia, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa and Turkey. So do remember this point that G20, it is one of the only remaining organization that includes these countries, right? And also it is the last group that is made of countries that do not approve of Russian war in Ukraine. So when there was a war, that is Russian war in Ukraine, some of the countries, they have approved of this Russian war and some countries, they did not approve this Russian war. So those countries which did not approve this Russian war, those countries, they have this particular group, so they are present in this particular group and they did not join this Western sanctions. And also coincidentally, nearly all the members except this Turkey, they are either members of NAM, that is non-aligned movement, or they are at least the observers in this non-aligned movement. And also, if New Delhi failed to find any consensus at G20, there was a fear that the G20 itself would fragment, right? Because if we did not find a consensus, that is all the countries coming together and taking a decision on a particular topic, if that did not happen, or if that consensus is not present, what would happen? There was a fear that the entire G20 would lead, it would have a fragmentation. Right, so possibly it would fragment into this G7 Western Bloc and BRICS, etc. So this is one point that you can remember. And also Indonesia, it is the ASEAN chair, while South Africa, it is BRICS chair. And also their multilateral heft, it also added to their efforts. And Japan too, it is also the G7 chair, it also played a important role in bringing US and Europe on board this particular meetings that we have. So eventually what happened is the outcome that we had, it strengthened the G20 itself as an organization, and it has pulled off a consensus 2 years in a row despite the polarizing war in Ukraine. So earlier also we have seen that when there was a Russian war in Ukraine, some countries have approved it and some countries did not approve it. So there was a polarizing war in this Ukraine. So even in this situation, we have pulled off a consensus 2 years in a row despite this polarizing war. So though we have this particular war, we have managed to bring about a consensus over here. So this is one more important achievement that we have done under this G20. And also coming to the support for a multipolar world. So the other fillip to the success of G20 summit. So what has helped for the success of G20 summit? That is what is discussed in this particular article. So one more thing that has helped the success of this G20 summit, it is the growing support for a multipolar world. So India, it has been a leading votary of this multipolar world. So we were always been a votary of this. We were always wanted to have this multipolar world, right? So it is often said that, or in the post-Cold War scenario, that is after this Cold War, whatever situation is present, US, it has tried to build a unipolar world. That is, US will be the only pole, unipolar world, that is a single pole. And China, it has pushed for a bipolar one. So in the China's view, in terms of this bipolar world, it feels that it is the only challenger to America's leadership of the world, and it would be an unrivaled leader of Asia. Right. So US, it tried to build a unipolar world wherein US will be the top, and China, it also pushed for a bipolar world wherein as a competitor or as a only challenger to America, China would be present. So that would be a bipolar world. That is two poles, that is one is USA and the other one would be China. So these are the views of US and China. So what about India? So India, it has sought a multipolar world, and in this multipolar world, the global south is very important. So this is what is the view of India, US and China on a world which is they are trying to have a unipolar world, bipolar world and a multipolar world. So the view of India is to have a multipolar world, and the global south, it plays a very important role in this multipolar world. And in geographical terms, if you see, the third pole, it refers to the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. So geographically, if you see, as we know, we have North Pole, South Pole, and what would be the third pole? It is the Hindu Kush Himalayan region or Upper South Asia. Right? Why is this so? It is because it has the largest volume of ice and snow outside of the North Pole and South Poles. So we have the North Pole wherein we have lot of volume of ice and snow. Similarly at the South Pole also, in the Antarctic region, we have lot of ice and also snow. So outside this North Pole and South Pole, if we look at a place where we have the next largest volume of ice and snow, it is our Hindu Kush Himalayan region or the Upper South Asian region. Right. So in development economics, however, it is clear that the global south is now seen as the third pole, and many global parts, they are coming to terms with its worth. Right. So geographically, we have different third pole, and economically, we have a different third pole. And while the global south, it is made up of more than almost like 125 countries, we may not compare in wealth with the north. So if you look at the global north and the global south, it is trying to be one important part of this multipolar world. But if you compare with the wealth that the global north has, we may not be in competition with that, but it has more than 125 countries. So it is increasingly becoming a voice that is to be heard. Right, so that it can voice out its concerns regarding climate change or health or development or even regarding the digital divide. And India's championing of this global south and within it membership of the 55 nation African Union it was reason for the desired outcomes at G20. So earlier also we have discussed at G20 we have the inclusion of this African Union which has 55 nations. So this is one more point that we have to remember as a success of G20 summit. And the middle way, what is this middle way? Finally, it is apparent that India's success at the G20, this owes itself to the decades-old tradition of abjuring alliances and also following a middle path on global discord. So this means making compromises at times. So sometimes when it is needed, we'll also go for compromises. Sometimes, for example, the Indian government's refusal to criticize or cut off ties with Russia, or to invite Ukrainian President Zelensky to address the G20, etc. So this is a success of G20 summit. So these are the things that have powered the success at the G20 summit that was done recently that we have in news. So this is about this article. So coming to our next article, it is simultaneous polls. Do states have a say? So the one nation, one election concept. So regarding the simultaneous polls, so here we have an article regarding the simultaneous polls. So does the states have any say in the simultaneous polls or not? So let's have a look at this. So the Union government on September 2nd set up a committee. So we have seen that regarding this one nation, one election concept, there was a committee that was formed. So under whom was this committee formed? It was formed under the leadership of former President of India, Shri Ramnath Kovind. So why was this committee formed? It is to look into the feasibility of simultaneous polls to state assemblies and Lok Sabha. So earlier we have discussed various points for and against the simultaneous polls. So hope you remember that particular editorial wherein it would be very helpful for you to write a mains answer on this simultaneous polls, right? So this committee was formed so that it will look at whether it is feasible to conduct the simultaneous polls to state assemblies and also to the Lok Sabha, whether it is possible or not, what are the possibilities that we have, what are the challenges that we may face in implementing these. So these will be looked at by this particular committee. And the 8-member high-level committee, so this is set to examine this one nation, one election idea, and also it will make recommendations like how to hold these simultaneous elections in the country, etc. And also the law ministry, it has outlined 7 terms of reference for the panel, right? So whatever panel that we have, for that our law ministry has given some terms of reference, and one of that is to examine and recommend if the constitutional amendments that are required to facilitate simultaneous election, it would require ratification by the states, right? So in order to conduct the simultaneous elections, if there is a need for a constitutional amendment, so if there is a need for constitutional amendment, if yes, then to facilitate this particular simultaneous elections, does this need any kind of ratification by the states or not? So that is also one more terms of reference that was given for this particular panel. So we'll look at what is this ratification by the states, so which provisions need such a ratification, etc. So the Constitutional Assembly debates, they show that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was in favor of the ratification by the states for the amendment of certain constitutional provisions. So while amending various constitutional provisions that we have, we will follow different kinds of processes, right? So basically we have different kinds of processes so that we can amend various provisions of our constitution. And during the debates of Constituent Assembly, there was some debate in favor of this ratification by the states by our Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, so that we can ensure that federal structure of the constitution, it remains fundamentally unaltered. So if the states are not given a chance to ratify on this amendments, what it will do, the union government may go unilaterally with a decision. So that may affect the federalism of our the federal structure of our country. So for this reason, they have introduced this particular ratification of the states for amending some constitutional provisions. And which article of the Constitution says regarding the process of amending the Constitution? It is our Article 368. So I repeat, it's Article 368 which mentions the procedure of amending the Constitution. So the constitutional provisions that require this ratification by the states in order to be amended, they are specifically listed in the proviso to Article 368 Clause 2, and they pertain to the federal structure of the Constitution. So these are the ones which are known as our entrenched provisions. So if you get a question on this term entrenched provisions, so whenever we have such phrases in news, you have to be very careful with this and you have to remember these phrases. So here, entrenched provisions means those constitutional provisions that require ratification by the states in order to be amended, and these are specifically listed in the proviso to Article 368 Clause 2, and they are regarding our federal structure of the Constitution. So if some provisions need this ratification of the states, and if they are pertaining the federal structure of the Constitution, those are the ones which are known as the entrenched provisions. So do remember this phrase. This is important for us from examination point of view. And as we have seen, we have different ways in which we can amend our Constitution. So there are 3 different procedures. So first one would be by a simple majority of those who are present and voting in each house of the parliament. So for example, if 50 people are present on that day in one house of the parliament, they will consider simple majority of those people who are present on that day and voting for a particular bill. So for example, amendments to Article 4, that is regarding the organization of states, or regarding Article 169, that is regarding abolition or creation of legislative councils in states. So in such cases, they'll consider this simple majority of those present and voting in each house of parliament. And we have a second procedure wherein provisions which are not within the first category, they come under this second category. So here there will be a special majority, and this should be not less than 2/3 of the members who are present and voting in each house of the parliament, and along with that it also needs a majority of total members of the house. So this particular thing is applicable only to final voting stage. And in the third category, we have both special majority, and also it needs a ratification by at least 1/2 of the state legislatures. So special majority is needed, and along with that, whatever state legislatures we have, at least 1/2 of the states, that means at least half of the states should ratify that particular bill. So for example, provisions relating to our federal structure of the Constitution, if it needs to be amended, they will consider this third category of amending the Constitution. So one more question that we have is, can a constitutional amendment be struck down if it is not ratified? So we have seen that if it affects some federal structure of the Constitution, then we need the ratification by the states, right? So if it is not ratified, what would happen? Does that constitutional amendment, it will be struck down or not? So let's have a look at it. We have a popular case, that is anti-defection case back in 1992. So wherein in this case, the constitutional validity of 10th schedule of Constitution, which was inserted by 52nd Amendment Act of 1985, this was challenged on the grounds that the amendment was not ratified by the states. So what happened is, in 1985, they have inserted a 52nd Amendment to the Constitution, right? So when this was introduced, it was not ratified by the states. So what they have done, they have challenged this, saying that this amendment was not ratified by the states. And also, it is known as the anti-defection case. It happened in 1992. So you have to remember some landmark judgments. So under this is one landmark judgment that you have to remember, that is anti-defection case. And on July 2021, that is recently, the Supreme Court in Union of India versus Rajendra N. Shaw, it has struck down provisions of the 97th Constitutional Amendment Act 2011 to the extent that it introduced Part 9b in the Constitution to deal with this cooperative societies. So that part which deals with the cooperative societies, that is introduced in this Part 9b, it was struck down in this particular case. And the court unanimously held that the amendment required ratification by at least 1/2 of the state legislatures, and this is according to our Article 368 Clause 2 of the Constitution because it dealt with an exclusive subject which comes under our state list, that is as per the entry 32 in list 2 of 7th schedule. So our 7th schedule to the Constitution, it has its union list, state list and concurrent list, and this topic, it comes under our state subject. So it needed ratification by at least 1/2 of the state legislature according to our Article 368 Clause 2. And the majority judgment, it invoked the doctrine of severability to make Part 9b operative only insofar as it concerns the multi-state cooperative societies. So that is about this article. So coming to our next one, government introduces Women's Quota Bill in Lok Sabha and Prime Minister calls for a consensus. So let's have a look at this particular bill that was introduced. So the Narendra Modi government introduced the Women's Reservation Bill in the Lok Sabha, and this is to reserve 1/3 of the seats in lower house and assemblies for women. So in our lower house, that is in the Lok Sabha, and also in the assembly, this will provide a reservation of 1/3 of the seats for women. And here we have to remember the amendment number, that is 128th amendment, Constitutional Amendment Bill 2023. So do remember the number of the bill is also equally important, right? But one more point that you have to remember is it would be implemented only after the 2026 delimitation exercise, and this will be using data from the census that would be conducted after the passage of the bill this year. So this year, if the bill is passed, though it is passed, it would be implemented only after 2026 delimitation exercise, and it will use data from the census that will be conducted after passing of this particular bill, right? So if this bill gets passed also, it will not be implemented right now. So the reservation in Lok Sabha, it will be therefore implemented only in the Lok Sabha elections in 2029 and not in 2024. Right. So this is one important point that you have to remember. Though we managed to pass this particular bill this year, it cannot be implemented in 2024 elections next year, but it can be implemented only in the next elections, that is Lok Sabha elections in 2029, because in 2026 we are going for a delimitation exercise. So the Prime Minister appealed to both the houses to pass the bill by a consensus. So with an agreement, by agreeing to this, our Prime Minister appealed that let's pass this particular bill and going by the House current strength. So right now, at present, if you look at the strength of the House, the number of women members, it will increase from 82 to 181. Right. So if this bill is passed, if you look at the present strength that we have, right now we have 82 women members and it will be increased to 181. And data shows that women MPs, they make up a mere 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha. So if you look at the entire strength of Lok Sabha, women MPs, they are just 15% of the entire strength of Lok Sabha. And in many state assemblies, if you look at the data, the women legislators, they are only around 10%. So if we give this kind of reservation, this would definitely enhance the number of women legislators both in Lok Sabha and also in various assemblies. So do remember this, they will have a reservation of 1/3 of the seats in the lower house and also the assemblies. And this is by our 128th Constitutional Amendment Bill of 2023. And the bill says that 1/3 of the seats shall be reserved for women belonging to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Right? So this is one more point that you have to remember. So among this reservation, again 1/3 of the seats, this will be reserved to those women who belong to SC and ST. And one more point is no separate reservation for the women from OBCs, that is other backward classes. So there is reservation especially for women from scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, but there is no separate reservation for women from other backward classes. So if you get a statement based question like this particular bill, it provides reservation for women from other backward classes also, SC, ST and OBC, that would be a wrong statement because it is only for women from SC and ST, but not for, there is no separate reservation for women from OBCs. And this law, it will be in force for 15 years and there is a Hindi name for this particular bill. right? So the Hindi name for this particular bill is Nari Shakti Nandan Adhiniyam. So it is Nari Shakti Nandan Adhiniyam. So do also remember the name in Hindi. And this law, it will be in force for 15 years. And the reserved seats, they will be rotated after every delimitation. So whenever there is a delimitation exercise, those reserved seats, they will be also rotated. So there will be a rotation of these reserved seats whenever we have this delimitation exercise. And a women's reservation bill, this was also brought earlier. For example, by the Devi Gowda government in 1996, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government in 1998 and 1999, and the Manmohan Singh government in 2008 when it was introduced in the Rajya Sabha. So all these previous attempts in the past 27 years to pass the bill, they were failed. So this is one more thing that you have to remember. So coming to our next article, it is 3 Hoysala temples were declared as World Heritage Sites. So what are those 3 heritage sites? So let's have a look at this. So the Hoysala temples at Belur, Halebeed and Somnathpur in Karnataka. So first of all, remember these were Hoysala temples and the places, that is Belur, Halebeed and Somnathpur, and then the state, that is Karnataka. So they were declared as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Right. So these are the 3 sites, that is 3 temples. So first one is Belur Chennakeshwar temple. So this is our Belur Chennakeshwar temple. Second one, this is our Halebeed Hoysaleshwar temple. And the third one is Somnathpura Keshwa temple. So Belur and Halebeed temples both are in Hassan district of Karnataka, and the Somnathpur temple, that is Somnathpur Keshwa temple, that is in Mysore district. So these 3 temples, so they were declared to be World Heritage Sites. So this is one important article from art and culture point of view that you have to remember. So UNESCO World Heritage Sites, we always expect questions on this. There were also previously some questions that were asked on this UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So you have to remember those sites, so where they are located and what are the various characteristics of those sites wherein they were declared as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So the Hoysala temples are this Belur, Halebeed and Somnathpur in Karnataka. So they were declared as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So what will happen if they were declared as World Heritage Sites? So that will bring about global recognition. So all over the world, they will have a recognition. So that will be with prospects of increase in international tourism to these places. Right. So if they are declared as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, all the people all over the world, they'll get to know that, okay, we have some heritage sites in this place. So that will lead to more and more tourism to that place, especially international tourism to these places. So all these 3 temples, that is our Belur Chennakeshwar temple, Halebeed Hoysaleshwar temple and Somnathpur Keshwa temple, these 3 temples are protected by the Archaeological Survey of India, and the nominations were entered as the sacred ensembles of Hoysalas. So to remember, they are entered as sacred ensembles of Hoysalas, and do remember the names of the 3 temples, the places at which they are located and the state, that is Karnataka. The Hoysala temple, so they are known for evolving a distinct style that is ornate with temple architecture. So they have a stellate plan that is built on a raised platform. And you have to also remember the material that is used in the construction of these temples, that is chlorite schist, and this is also known as soapstone. So what is the quality, distinct quality of this soapstone? This is very soft. So it will be very comfortable for carving with this particular stone. Right. So when we are using this soapstone, which is soft, it will be very comfortable to carve with this particular stone. So this is one thing that you have to remember. And the temples, they have horizontal friezes, and many of the sculptures, they are signed by artists, which is unique in the history of Indian art. So if you look at the entire Indian art, these sculptures, they have a signature of this artist, and this is very unique in the entire Indian art, while the doorways show intricate carvings showcasing the excellence achieved by the artist. So even if you look at the sculptures of these temples and even the doorways of these temples, there were lot of intricate carvings on this. So coming to our last article for today, Center floats new Science Awards. So this is important for us from science and technology point of view. So nearly a year after deciding to cut the number of prizes annually awarded by its ministries, the Union government is set to institute the Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar. So do you remember the name of this awards, that is Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar? So what is this Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar? So let's have a look at this particular article, so which is important for us from awards and honors point of view also. So after a year, they have decided to this cut the number of prizes awarded by its ministries, right? So whatever the number of prizes that were given, so they have decided to cut down this number. So similar to the prestigious Padma awards, like we have Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri awards, these awards will not include any cash component. So this is for the first point that you have to remember. Under this Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar, if a person is bestowed with this Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar, that person will not be given any cash component. So thus that person will be bestowed only a certificate and a medallion. So the awardee will get a certificate and medallion but not any cash, right? And there would be 56 prizes, and this would be for scientists, technologists and also for innovators. So this Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar, so it will comprise 3 Vigyan Ratna, 25 Vigyan Shri and 25 Vigyan Yuva Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar and 3 Vigyan Team Awards. So this is one more point that you have to remember. So we have seen that there are 56 prizes. So this is there is a lot of decrease in the number of awards that are given, because earlier there were almost 300 science prizes that used to be given by the union ministries, but now it was cut down to 56 prizes, right? So in fact, the government also announced the names of 12 winners of this Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Awards just last week after a year's delay. So after 1 year delay, recently the government has announced the names of 12 winners of this Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Awards also. And also there are no age limits for any prizes except for this Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award, for which recipients should be 45 years or younger than that. So they should not be older than 45 years. So up to 45 years is the age limit for this. And these prizes, they will be awarded annually for various subjects like physics, chemistry, biological sciences, etc. And there is a 13th category simply called others. So there are in total 13 categories that you can see over here. So in these categories, every year this Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskars would be provided, and the awardees would be Vigyan Ratna, Vigyan Shri, Vigyan Yuva Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar and 3 Vigyan Team Awards. So the awardees will not get any cash reward. And in the previous avatar, the prizes also had a significant cash component. So earlier they used to give some cash also, but right now this is not present, right? So the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Awards, given by the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research since 1958, this snuff includes 5 lakh rupees per winner as well as a salary perk, right? And also, do you remember this? Earlier it has a cash component, and now it does not have. And persons of Indian origin that we have, so that we study in, especially in polity, we study about this NRIs and PIOs. So hope you remember that PIOs, that is persons of Indian origin. So these new awards, they will be also open to this persons of Indian origin, though a maximum of 1 such be awarded to the Vigyan Ratna. Only 1 award would be given to this persons of Indian origin, that is Vigyan Ratna, and 3 PIOs each can be selected for Vigyan Shri and also VISPSB. And these PIOs, they will be not eligible for this Vigyan Team Awards. So if you look at Vigyan Ratna, 1 PIO can be given Vigyan Ratna out of these 3, and out of this 25 Vigyan Shri and 25 VYSSB awards, 3 each can be selected from PIOs. But if you look at the Vigyan Team Awards, the PIOs, that is persons of Indian origin, they are not eligible for these awards. So do remember this point also. And the awards, they will be announced annually on 11th of May. That is every year on 11th of May, these awards will be announced. So why 11th of May? It is National Technology Day. and this will be awarded on National Space Day on August 23. So the announcement will be done on National Technology Day and they will be awarded on National Space Day. Right. So these are the days on which India successfully conducted its second nuclear test in 1998, and then it catapulted the Chandrayaan 3's Vikram lander on the moon this year. So these two dates were considered for announcement and also awarding of these Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar. And the CSIR, it will coordinate the administration of the awards process for 2 years, and after that it will be taken over by the proposed National Research Foundation. So until then the CSIR will coordinate, and after 2 years the National Research Foundation, it will take over this particular process. So coming to some previous year questions on the topics that we have discussed, since we have this Hoysala temples in news, the previous year question that we have in 2018 is safeguarding the Indian art heritage is the need of the moment. Discuss. And if you look at some prelims previous year questions, consider the following statements about UNESCO World Heritage Properties in India. So this is how a question was asked. So you have to be definitely aware of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites that are being included every year. So you have to be updated with the list, especially if we have any additions from our country. And here we have a previous question on G20, wherein we have also discussed about the success of G20 in the first editorial that we have discussed today. So in which of the following groups are all the 4 countries members of G20? And this question was asked back in 2020. So whenever we have some regional groupings or international groupings in news, you have to be definitely aware of all the member countries of that particular grouping. So here if you see, you have to be aware of the G20 members so that you can answer this particular question. So here the correct answer is Argentina, Mexico, South Africa and Turkey. So that's all about the important articles of the Hindu from today. So hope you have liked this video. So do follow us on various social media channels and please do like, share and subscribe to our channel ForumIAS. Thank you so much for watching this video. Bye-bye.